So it's been a couple of weeks since we last talked about these things. I think about the 19th of June. And I believe we pick up today about paragraph 7. I think we finished paragraph 6 before. And anybody recall what that was all about? Yeah, we're on the proclamation in mid-heaven. What this paragraph was talking about, it was talking about the in the days of David, when there was judgment on the nation of Israel, and the destroying angel was over Jerusalem with the sword, and was commanded to stay, not to proceed any further, and until further notice, I guess you might say. And that's when the decision was made, and by David. And let's see. We'll just read a little bit here. The situation is illustrated by 1 Chronicles 21:16. David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord stand between the earth and the heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand, stretched out over Jerusalem. And David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, fell upon their faces. And this was, of course, after the numbering of the people. And there was some destruction had already taken place. God had sent the angel unto Jerusalem in the previous verse to destroy it. And as he was destroying, the Lord beheld and repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, "It is enough, stay now thine hand." So there had been destruction take place already. And now the comparison of this that has been drawn by the author here is saying that this has a bit of like a foretaste of this mid-heaven proclamation, which comes, and we will be taking this probably today, but it's timed to come after the Armageddon battle, when the power of the north has been destroyed. However, before you might say the grinding to pieces, grinding to powder of the remnants, and before the beast is slain, or before the destruction of the papal system. So it's kind of between the two. So in a sense, it's mid-heaven kind of stands for that too. It's between the two major activities that are to take place, right? And and then the proclamation, the invitation is given to the nations, who will submit, before we go further. So that was the similarity, the comparison drawn there. So similar to the angel of Yahweh in the days of David, the multitudinous Christ will occupy mid-heaven and will proclaim the gospel to the mortal population, giving them opportunity to accept or await the impending judgment. Now this next paragraph, he'll mention about the two circumstances, in similar circumstances in Revelations, where there is a mid-heaven proclamation, and he'll show the difference between the two in this paragraph. It says, "The reader will not confound this angel flying through mid-heaven with that said also to fly through mid-heaven in chapter 8:13. Chapter 8:13 says, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound." So this is a part of the sounding of the trumpets after the fourth angel had sounded. And after that had happened, he heard this angel flying through the midst of heaven. So we'll just not comment on that anymore until we finish this paragraph. says the difference in their proclamations indicates a difference in the time, agents, and circumstances of the two. The proclamation of chapter 8 preceded the sounding of the fifth trumpet, and was made by those who were able to discern the signs of the times in which they lived. While that in the 14th chapter here that we're studying, is made by agents represented by John after their resurrection and inauguration as kings and priests for the deity. There was only superlative woe proclaimed in the first, but in this remembrance of the hour of judgment there is also an announcement of good news. So he's just drawing a comparison between the two and saying that they are quite different. The circumstances between the chapter 14 angel in mid-heaven with the chapter 8 angel in mid-heaven is that the chapter 14 angel is in the time when Christ rules the earth, while the chapter 8 angel is proclaiming a message of warning when the kingdoms of men rule the earth. Just in very, without going into a lot of detail, that is the difference. The chapter 8 incident is quite a while in the past, and this is in chapter 14 is future to us. Any comments, questions? I don't know how, whether you want to get into any of the circumstances of the trumpets in chapter 8, but I think, for purposes of what we're studying here, the difference is pretty clear.
The trumpet's going to reproduce the reducing of the power of the Western Empire, right? The Eastern Kingdom.
Yeah, we have a note there. John's attention was suddenly attracted by an interruption in the action of the angelic trumpeters. Why should the trumpeters be interrupted at this point? It indicates a change of direction as to where the prophecies would be fulfilled. Previously, the visions concerned the Western Empire. Now we must turn to the Eastern Empire. Previously, they related to Rome. Now they concern Constantinople. So it's a change of the area, and basically saying with a loud voice here, the repetition of the word is intensive, and the idea is that the sounding of the three remaining trumpets would announce great and fearful calamities to the inhabitants of what remained in the Roman earth, which was the Byzantine Empire, in which I believe was basically connected with the Muslim movement and the Turkish and so on. Gordon?
Just wondering if this future situation that would be accompanied by more or less a supernatural display of it, like maybe not equivalent to
signs and wonders.
Seeing an angel, but because between the earth, which is the people, and heaven, which is the ruler, there will be the divine presence will be obvious. It's just like the angel powering like David.
Remember what happened in the Pentecostal epoch, when after Christ had gone up to heaven and the disciples went forward in the days of Pentecost, what accompanied them in their signs and wonders. And I think that the similar kind of thing will accompany this last days proclamation of the gospel as well. I mean, signs and wonders have obviously just happened in the overthrow of the power of the north. That's a huge sign and wonder. And, people will be, anybody that's thinking about things will definitely sit up and take notice of it.
We previously read there about how the Pentecost of Acts 2 is kind of relates a lot to this time period as well.
Right. the Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement, and the interval between the blowing of the trumpet, the sounding forth, and the invitation, you might say, and then the interval between that and the actual Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. There was an interval there for people to consider their ways. Okay, paragraph 8. Paragraph 8 speaks about the fact that the world is invited by Christ to participate in the glory of the kingdom age. That is what is being proclaimed. The gospel is the invitation to participate, much like the gospel is today. It's good news of coming salvation. It says the good news is styled aeonian, a word which I have not translated, but only transferred. The angel host has aeonian good news to proclaim. It is styled aeonian, I conceive, because it announces things not seen pertaining to the aeon or course, during which all nations will be blessed in Abraham and his seed. This course is not to last forever, but for 1,000 years. So what we're talking about is this word up in here in this verse in chapter 14, verse 6, having the everlasting gospel. And that word everlasting is in the original aeonian. And so that's what he said is used here, having the aeonian gospel to preach. So he says this course is not to last forever, but for 1,000 years. Styled in Daniel 7:12, a season and a time. At the end of this course of centuries, the nations revolt, and judgment comes upon them to extermination. For this reason, I do not translate the word in this text, everlasting, as in the English version. The proclamation is the announcement of millennial good news, namely, that the resurrection, immortalization, and inauguration of the called and chosen and faithful firstfruits have been accomplished by Jesus Christ, who, having returned in power and great glory, has set up the ancient throne of his father David on Mount Zion. That, being established there, he invites the allegiance of all nations to himself as King of the whole earth by the grace of his eternal Father, who has appointed him to execute judgment and justice in the earth and to rule the world in righteousness, that he is prepared to destroy the powers that corrupt and oppress the nations, and to wipe away tears from off all faces, and to take away the rebuke of his people Israel from off all the earth. That his purpose is to change the faiths of the world, and to enlighten mankind with the true knowledge from the rising to the setting sun. That as mankind have been for a long series of ages in the bottomless abyss of ignorance and superstition, in commiseration of their helplessness, he invites them to hearken diligently unto him, and to come and buy wine and milk of him, without money and without price. That if they will accept this invitation to the feast he has prepared for all peoples, they shall live under their own vines and fig trees in peace, none shall make them afraid. But if, on the contrary, they determine still to worship the beast and his image, and to receive the sign in their foreheads or in their hands, then they shall be made to drink of the wine of the wrath of the deity, which hath been prepared without mixture in the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So, just in summarization of that paragraph, the message of proclamation or invitation will go forth in the final phase of the course of this dispensation, providing an opportunity to prepare for the next level of divine activity, and the choice people make in responding to the call will result in subsequent blessings or judgment in their lives. Gordon?
Complete contrast this age of faith without the age of sight. Someone saying this is the way.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to stop and figure it out. This is the way. Walk in it.
Yeah. You've seen what's happened. Yeah.
As a result, the crowd will be quite a few. Will make the change or make the right choice.
Sid?
Probably, and it will result in a very high level of responsibility because they will have seen directly, and those who still choose to reject the message will be, like we see in these verses later on in chapter 14, they will be liable to very extreme ramifications if they do not accept the invitation.
Be no excuse.
Yeah.
Almost like blasphemy against the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sid?
Again, what comes to my mind thinking about that time period, it could be quite a ways down the line time-wise from us, so it could be very, very short. And the role that we have to play in this process is
It works.
yeah, they kind of
Talking about the responsibility.
Yeah. So it could have been more very important.
Just look up this word Aeonian here. Like he says, he's not translated yet, but that is the word that's in the original. And he talks about it like being a course. That's the word at the top on this little chart here, and it means perpetual use also of past time or past and future as well. And it is from the index number in the Greek of 165, aeon. Ahion, as the pronunciation shows it should be said there. Anyway, it's properly an age, and by extension perpetuity, also past, by implication the world, specifically Jewish Messianic period, present or future. So it definitely can be a time period having a beginning and an end. I think, and that's what the point Brother Thomas is bringing out there, and he calls it a course, or in this case it would be a period of the 1,000 years, having a beginning and a definite beginning and an end. And this in white here is all the various ways that the word is translated, of course, in the King James Version. And you'll see the word everlasting there on this word Ahionius. Or Ahionius. And the rest of it is just basically it's just in there just for reference purposes. It's saying where these words are derived from. Now he does make the point that in some places that it is the Greek equivalent of the Hebrew word olam, and see that here olam, and it means properly concealed. That is the vanishing point, generally time out of mind, past or future. That is practically eternity, frequentative, adverbially, always. But you'll notice that it is used in context sometimes with a period that has a beginning and an end. So, okay. Yes. Yeah, opportunity. Yeah, an occasion. Yeah. I don't know who had there. Gordon?
Just wondering, those that have got to judgment, of course, would be immortalized or returned to death. But these people that live during this time period haven't really had, well, they've had a chance to make a choice, but they haven't seen the evil. And I'm thinking this is why, it speaks about Satan being loosed at the end. It would be a kind of a refining, like where the promises were brought through this period of evil, that we may understand the goodness of God. And without that period of evil, there may be that tendency, self-determination, nature, all those things that they know better, and there's curiosity of what we missed, kind of thing. There needs to be that period at the end, kind of refine the ones that are
right.
maybe not fully fit.
Dave, you have your...
Yeah, just let Aeonian rung a bell. It's actually the same word, or the same Greek word that's used when we, in the Bible, word eternal life. It talks about our immortality. Talk about use that word Aeonian.
Yeah.
Another point going off what Gordon brought up. I had a bit of a Eureka moment. I forget when it was. It was a few weeks ago about how God's righteousness is declared to Christ. And we know, of course, Christ in his obedience and God obviously in his perfection is righteous. But there's another contrast to that, is that through every dispensation of time, man in sin finds a way to just go against God. Whether that's in Cain or in the children of Israel, we figure ahead that in our era, and even in this era to come, sin just finds a way, and it's like it's just the yeast within us that just bubbles up and goes against God. No, as much as we think it's how could they in the future kingdom time go against God, sin is so creative in its ways. They'll find a way to manifest itself as against God, and that, in contrast to God's righteousness, shows God's righteousness and man's sin.
I believe it's the Apostle Paul says sin is exceeding sinful. That was what everything that God did, through the giving of the law and through the manifestation of Christ, was to show the sinfulness of sin, and the deceitfulness of sin. Sin.
Reminds me of something that an article I saw recently. It was a fictional thing, but it was like two people appearing at the judgment seat. One was from national Israel back in the time of Moses, and one was a person from like one of us. And each looking at the other and saying, how could you have fallen down? You had Moses and the prophets and all of them there right in your face telling you had signs and wonders to look at.
completed Bible, you know,
Yeah.
right at your everything right at your fingertips.
Yeah, all of these things, and you know, if the end comes, there is no excuse. None of us have an excuse, and it's it all comes back to a recognition of the reason, not the excuse, but the reason for it is the flesh. And you know, the law was designed to show the exceeding sinfulness of the flesh, and the law of grace was designed to contrast that with the righteousness of God. When you put the two together, you have the complete picture.
And you know, and in the final analysis of things, without the grace of God, no flesh would be saved. That's ultimately what God has gone through all this whole process to show. You know, that it requires His grace to save anybody.
Grace may abound, or sin may abound, grace much more abound, or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. Gordon?
Yeah, I think that is point. Through failure, through experiencing something that they recognize that it is by grace, and that's goes back to that 24 elders, worthy art thou, receive power, honor, and glory, and that really encapsulates the emotion that must come from the saints. It's not like we've done it by our own goodness. It's like we have been granted this amazing grace. That should never be forgotten. I think that's probably why the sacrifices were made. Just so very touchstone here and remember inherent and escape flesh.
Sid?
Yeah, we tend to feel like we would like to arrive at the judgment seat, a picture of success. And really, the only success we can arrive at the judgment seat is successfully recognizing we're not successful. You know, it's if we were to arrive at the judgment seat with a feeling of success, we're set up for failure immediately. We need to arrive at the judgment seat of Christ. In a figure of speech, I guess, as a wreck. Realizing, you know, like Paul said, "O wretched man I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this sin?" So that we're ready to be recreated into the individual that we have supposedly been trying to make ourselves into all along. But unsuccessful. And if we don't arrive at the judgment seat with that realization, then we're not ready for what we might call recreation.
I remember someone, I don't know who it was, someone once made the comment that the person who perhaps is the most aware of their unworthiness may have, you know, the least to be concerned about it. They're the one who's most fearful of being unworthy. Gordon?
I think we do need to have some success, but in spite of that, be aware of our unworthiness.
It's the awareness. That's the point. Just going to say a couple quotes here, and they're pretty simple, but he's talking about the course is not to last forever, but for 1,000 years, and he quotes from Daniel 7:12. This is concerning the rest of the beasts. They had the dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time, and that's the talking about that period of the millennial reign of Christ. And also Revelations 20 verse 9, speaking about the destruction that would ensue upon those who do not respond to this invitation. They went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints. I guess we'll just get context there, what he's talking about. When the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about in the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So that would be speaking about the end of that that period that he's talking about here, being the Aeonian period. Sorry, shouldn't have happened. So we'll go on then to paragraph 9, which speaks about the leaders of the world will regard the invitation with suspicion and unbelief. This will be the reason that there will still need to be more judgments in the earth, because that invitation will not be responded to like it should be. And why? Because just of what the very fact that we were just talking about, the sinfulness of sin, the deceitfulness of sin, and it will find a way somehow, some way, to turn things around and in favor of human nature. So a proclamation, he says, of this kind, made by such ambassadors of Jesus Christ, and attested by signs and wonders of a character to establish their claims to the confidence and respect of the nations and their rulers, cannot fail of arresting attention as the all-absorbing topic of the day. The message itself, and the reception it meets with by the world rulers of church and state, will doubtless eclipse and supersede all other news. The leading journals of Europe and America will be confounded. And I guess we can add in our day here now the blogs and all the internet media that's out there will be confounded. And seeing that the editorial staff of the world, like the spirituals of the clerical kingdom, have no oil in their vessels, their leading articles upon this wonderful topic can only be the reflex of the darkness that covers the earth and the gross darkness of the people. As folly and falsehood are their stock in trade, they will doubtless counsel rejection of the message and hostility to all claims emanating from such questionable authority. As they live by trying to please the majority, they will trim their sails to catch the popular breeze. Interesting way of putting it. Their counsel will be a bridle in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. The editors, the clergy, and the civil rulers of the mid-heaven will be the ruin of society, so that under the guidance of their policy, the armies of the nations will go forth as a whirlwind to scatter him. He's quoting there Habakkuk 3. Past these little things at the bottom of the PowerPoint here. Habakkuk 3:14. Thou didst strike through with his staves the head of his villages. They came out as a whirlwind to scatter me. Their rejoicing was as to devour the poor secretly. And that is quite a significant chapter, right from start to finish. It's the prophecy of God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His glory covered the heavens. The earth is full of his praise. We have a hymn based on that throughout the period of the return of Christ. So the chapter is quite significant about that whole time period. So henceforth, the applicability of that verse to this period. It is not in human nature, he says, much less in its political organization. This just kind of reflects back in what we were just talking about. It is not in human nature, much less in its political organization, to surrender power, wealth, and honor at discretion. It does not part with these things without a struggle to retain them. On such a proclamation coming to the Pope and crowned heads of Europe from a Jew on Mount Zion, claiming to be Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, are they like to acknowledge him, to place their kingdoms at his disposal, and to cast their crowns at his feet? We know certainly that they will not. For it is testified that all nations shall compass him about like bees, that they shall be quenched as a fire of thorns, for in the name of Yahweh he will destroy them. It quotes from Psalms 118, verses 10 to 12. All nations compass me about, but in the name of the Lord will I destroy them. They compassed me about, yea, they compassed me about, but in the name of the Lord I will destroy them. They compass me about like bees. They are quenched as the fire of thorns, for in the name of Yahweh I will destroy them. Prophetic Messianic Psalm. And from Revelations 19, verses 19 to 21. I saw the beast, and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. The beast was taken, with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. So, just in summary, the popular concept of the Antichrist is that he will be, that is, that Antichrist will be a leader who will appear to the Jews and claim to be their Messiah, and proceed to establish himself in Jerusalem and build a temple there. All of these things that are expected by popular religion are the things that the real Christ will accomplish. So people in general will not be ready to receive and accept him for what he is, only to reject him for what he is not. That's it.
That brings back the comment that I was making that I forgot. Saying that is our role, is to proclaim the truth about this Antichrist, to give people an option, another train of thought to think on as to the identity of this Antichrist. I think that is key to our role at this time, because then we can prepare people to stop and reconsider rather than just accepting the mainstream.
Even if it's just one more individual, it's worth it. Yeah.
Because otherwise we are banning them to a horrible fate.
I really do think that's true, and I think that there will be ignorant mortals that are left remaining. In all likelihood, a very significant choice they'll have to make, whether this way or that way.
Yeah.
And if they've been told with the knowledge of what these things mean, they just need to make the right choice.
There's this is just some stuff we took just off the internet here that's been put out there about Antichrist. I'm not sure I pronounced this right, but I'm not even sure who this person is, but Bousset believes that there was among the Jews a fully developed legend of Antichrist which was accepted and amplified by Christians, and that this legend diverges from and contradicts in important points the conceptions found in the Apocalypse. We do not believe that Bousset has fully proved his opinion. His view as to the Christian development of the concept of Antichrist does not exceed the merits of an ingenious theory. We need not here enter upon an investigation of Dunkel's work, in which he traces back the idea of Antichrist to the primeval dragon of the deep. This view deserves no more attention than the rest of the author's mythological fancies. What then is the true ecclesiastical concept of Antichrist? Sorez believes that it is of faith that Antichrist is an individual person, a signal enemy of Christ. This excludes the contention of those who explain Antichrist either as the whole collection of those who oppose Jesus Christ or the papacy, the Waldensian and Albigensian heretics, as well as Wycliffe and Huss, called the Pope by the name of Antichrist, but the expression was only a metaphor in their case. It was only after the time of the Reformation that the name was applied to the Pope in its proper sense. It then passed practically into the creed of the Lutherans and has been seriously defended by them as late as 1861. The change from the true church into the reign of Antichrist is said to have taken place between 19th February and 10th November AD 607 when Pope Boniface III obtained the Greek Emperor Newton, from the Greek Emperor Newton, the title, head of all the churches for the Roman Church. Appeal was made to Apocalypse 13:8 in confirmation of this date. It was calculated from Apocalypse 11:3 that the end of the world might be expected AD 1866. And so on. The individual person of Antichrist will not be a demon, as some of the ancient writers believe, nor will he be the person of the devil incarnate in the innate human nature of Antichrist. He will be a human person, perhaps of Jewish extraction, if the explanation of Genesis 49:17, together with that of Dan's omission of the catalog of the tribes as found in the Apocalypse, be correct. It must be kept in mind that extra scriptural tradition furnishes us no revealed supplement to the biblical data concerning Antichrist. While these latter are sufficient to make the believer recognize the man of sin at the time of his coming, any lack of any additional reliable revelation should put us on our guard against the daydreams of the Irvingites, the Mormons, and other recent proclaimers of new revelations. If any part of the church be proved to be anti-Christian, all the churches so the Protestant branch inclusive. The papal Antichrist theory was gradually developed from three historical bodies: the Albigenses, the Waldenses, the Fracasselli between the 11th and 16th century. Are these the expositors from whom the Church of Christ is to receive the true interpretation of the prophecies? The defenders of the papal Antichrist theory have made several single blunders in their arguments. They cite St. Bernard as identifying the beast of the Apocalypse with the Pope, though St. Bernard speaks in the passage of the Anti-Pope. They appeal to the abbot Joachim as believing that Antichrist will be elevated to the apocalyptic see, while the abbot really believes that Antichrist will overthrow the Pope and usurp his see. They finally appeal to Pope Gregory the Great as asserting that whoever claims to be the universal bishop is Antichrist, whereas the great doctor really speaks of the forerunner of Antichrist, who was, in the language of his day, nothing but a token of a great impending evil. Protestants were driven to the anti-papal Antichrist theory by the necessity of opposing the popular answer to the popular and cogent arguments advanced by the Church of Rome for her divine authority, and so on. If the Pope be Antichrist, those who receive and follow him cannot be men like St. Charles Borromeo or Fenelon or St. Bernard, so on. If the Church must suffer like Christ, and if Christ be called Beelzebub, the true Church must expect a similar reproach. Thus, the papal Antichrist theory becomes an argument in favor of the Roman Church. The jibe that if the Pope is not Antichrist, he has bad luck to be so like him, is really another argument in favor of the claim of the Pope, since Antichrist simulates Christ and the Pope is an image of Christ. Antichrist must have some similarity to the Pope. The latter is to be a true vicar of Christ. So you see the arguments flying back and forth and the reasonings on that. And, it's really mudding the waters.
Where did that come from?
This was, I think, from the Wikipedia. Yeah. Yeah. But, then there's your Left Behind series and so on that it's very interesting that some of their concepts about the Antichrist and what he will do. So,
notice even in that first article, the appeal to the authority of some certain people. If the Pope is the Antichrist, then how could we possibly apply that label to so-and-so, so-and-so? It's not really appealing to the authority of Scripture, it's appealing to the people's devotion to certain individuals.
Right.
Regarding highly as spiritual experts.
Yeah. These are all, we don't have, our time is gone here, but we'll have to go refer back to them.
They've never talking about one jealousy, real quick. Because you have such a fear of the devil that you very religious, now we can send out the help and advice to everything we can possible. But that level is so real for her that choice.
Yeah.
Now what do you do with someone like that?
Talk about everything.
You just can't.
You gotta talk about
No,
that.
it's you don't see that.